friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I'm going to be talking about the benefits of yarrow and its uses. And if you've been following me for this over 7 years I've had my channel, you might know I already have a video on yarrow out, but I'm going to be going back over some of my older videos like yarrow, feverfew, echinacea, marshmallow, and more, and just redoing them so that I can give some more updated information and really expand on the beneficial properties of these herbs. So let's get talking about yarrow. Now, yarrow is one of the first medicinal herbs I started to grow, and I have a jar of dried yarrow right here. It's flowers and leaves, if you can see in there. That's the part most predominantly used of the plant. And the reason it was one of the first herbs that I started to grow as far for medicinal purposes is because it had such a long list of benefits. So let me get talking about these, and then I'll talk about how I use yarrow. The botanical name is Achillea Millefolium, and I'll put that right here so you can see what that looks like. I'll also make sure it gets into the title as well. Yarrow is a natural analgesic, which means it can be good for headaches and other types of body pains. It is antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, astringent. It's amphoteric, which means it's one of those herbs that when you use it, whether it be in the form of topically or in the form of a tea internally, it will go to where it's needed in the body. It is styptic, which means it stops bleeding. So if you've got a cut, yarrow is one of the most common things to use for cuts to help stop bleeding. It is good for menstrual cramps and other PMS type symptoms. Because it's antiseptic, it's great for curing infections of various different kinds. In fact, yarrow is one of the first thing I used when we had our little Chihuahua, and she was always scratching her eyes and getting infections. I would make a yarrow tea, let it cool, just put a little pinch of salt in it so it would match the body chemistry. And then I'd use that tea in her eyes to help cure her eye infections, and it worked great. It's also good to take in a tea form for colds, flus, and fevers. It is very helpful if you have allergies or any type of respiratory illness. It's great for general skin care, and this includes cuts, bites, scrapes, burns, rashes, but also things such as psoriasis and eczema. It's helpful at treating mastitis in the form of a poultice or a compress. It's helpful at healing bruises and sprains. It is good for sleep and anxiety, and in this case, I do recommend using the flowers to make a tea with, and then drinking that in the evening. Though you can use the leaves too. The flowers are just simply have a better flavor. If you're wanting just a tea to relax, it is very closely related to chamomile, by the way. It can help repel mosquitoes. So if you have a big mosquito problem, just having floral arrangements where you put your yarrow flowers in there around, that can help keep mosquitoes out. Or you can infuse it into an oil and put it on your skin, or make a tea out of it and spray it on your skin. And I would also recommend adding like catmint or catnip to that, because I don't like that either. It's showing to be helpful with symptoms of multiple sclerosis. It's very good for digestive health, in particular IBS, diarrhea, Crohn's, stomach cramps, and more. It's high in antioxidants. It is very good for eye health. So that would be both using it like a wash, like you would with the fennel tea that I mentioned before, or in the form of a tea that you would consume. It's good for oral health, so you could even add powdered yarrow into your tooth powder if you wanted. It's also good for cardiovascular health and reducing chronic high blood pressure. So let's talk about the uses. So again, the flowers and the leaves are the parts that are most commonly used, and they can be eaten. And what surprised me is that some people actually cook with the flowers and leaves. Now, I find them to be a little bit too bitter for that. One time I made a tea with yarrow and put a little too much of the leaves in, and it wasn't all that tasty. So I was surprised to read that some people do actually cook with it, add it to stir fries and soups and more. But I would say the flowers. The flowers are going to have a better flavor than the leaves as far as that goes. It's not as bitter, by the way, as feverfew, but I just know too much of it can be a little bit on the bitter side. You can also powder it and use it in capsule form, or you can buy yarrow capsules if you're not already growing it, and you can tincture it. Again, topically, it can be used in the form of a poultice, a soak, or wash, like an eye wash. Like I've made eye washes out of the yarrow before. Some precautions is that you shouldn't use it if you're pregnant because it can cause miscarriage. And they do say not to use it with when you're nursing, but that could simply be because a lot of times when they give precautions is because they just haven't done enough studies to be able to say for certain whether or not you should use this while you're pregnant or nursing. Just like with any herb, if you're on medications, you really got to look into any kind of herb. If you're using it medicinally, it can be counterproductive to the medication. That's usually the biggest issue. It can be counterproductive to the medication. Or it can cause more severe side effects that maybe would already be caused by the medication, because it's kind of like you're doubling up on a medication when you do that. And a couple of medications that I came across that were listed were sedatives, lithium-based drugs, anti-inflammatories, anticoagulants, and antiplatelets. And I'm pretty sure that has to do with the fact that it does have styptic properties. Now, some other things that I use yarrow for is I've used it in my homemade soaps back when I was making the soaps to sell. I don't usually fancy up our own soaps. I just keep them very simple and plain, just fat, water, and lye. But when I was making them to sell, yarrow was a common ingredient I would add in its dry form to some of my different soaps because of its great properties to the skin. And I also, this is the most common thing I use it for, is to make a healing salve. And so I do have a video recipe on the oil infusion for the healing salve, which involves the yarrow, comfrey, plantain, and dandelion flowers. Sometimes I'll also add calendula, depending on how much dried calendula I have on hand. But then I take that oil after I've infused it, and then I turn that into a salve. So I have two different videos, one showing the oil infusion and then one showing making the healing salve out of that. But you can always just use any infused oil straight as is. You don't have to turn it into a salve. That's going to be entirely up to you. Sometimes when you add the beeswax and some of the other things in there, it's going to basically dilute it. So sometimes using the oil straight can be a little more potent doing it that way. So that's it for my video on yarrow. If there's anyone out there that uses yarrow, whether you grow it or you buy it or you wild harvest it, please share with us what you use it for and also what it has helped you with in the comments down below. And don't forget to check out the playlist link to herbs, foods, and more that I've done videos like this on, where I break down its benefits and its uses. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.